Hi, everyone, welcome back to a tactics video. This time reviewing my performance at a 22-person RT, a Road Trader tournament. Yesterday where I played Combined Arms Detachment over 3 games. So I'll look at my army list, the games I played, the opponents I played into, and then talk about some adjustments I'll make and a lot of wider reflections on Astra Militarum. So before I get into it, this was good to get back on the horse in inverted commas. Had a pretty rough run for about probably 3 months, just wasn't feeling it. So it was nice to get back and post some good results for the Astra Militarum. So let's look at my list to get it started. So Combined Arms Detachment army list with 2,000 points, with the headquarter units being Lord Solar, Def Corps Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, and a Commissar. Now the Commissar was taken purely because I had 30 points left, so that's simply a rounding error in inverted commas. And Lord Solar I will speak in a bit more detail, but I certainly think at 150, compared to now Ursula Creed at 85 points, Lord Solar actually feels like good value, only because Ursula Creed is more expensive. The Def Corps of Kree Command Squad is then combined with 10 Def Corps for the Super Blob. And my thought process here is that because I have 10 Cadians, and I'll explain why I've done this in a moment, actually having Lord Solar with a Def Corps Command Squad and a Def Corps dudes means you can actually heal back this unit, and also you actually get 1 more wound in the Def Corps Blob versus, say, a Cadian Command Squad or Cadian Jungle Command Squad. It's in 10 Cadians, as said, and 2 Jungle Fighter Squads of 10, 2 Taurochs, 3 Bolgrams, 2x10 Khazrakan, and a blob of 10 Rough Riders. Now in the Taurochs, when I start the games, it's either the Jungle Fighters or the Khazrakan in the Taurochs. And then it's 3 Limon Rust battle tanks with las cannons and multi-melters, a single auto cannon Limon Rust with plasma cannons, and 1 Scout Sentinel with a las cannon. Now this list here looks pretty traditional in inverted commas. Definitely if you've been following Astra Militarum for a while now, this becomes quite a similar footprint. We're probably only the ones which would take a bit of consideration, obviously, would be the Commissar, Scout Sentinel, Rough Riders, and Bolgrams. Everything else is pretty much agreed. They're all pretty solid choices. Now, I will discuss in a second when I look at the first game, but definitely the inclusion of Bolgrams is partially because they're now 100 points, and also because the UKTC mission pack has been changed, so the terrain layout has been changed a fair bit, and I thought about making a couple of choices to sort of potentially counter the potential melee threat I thought would be a bit of a problem with the new layout. Then Rough Riders as well are a direct, a direct choice I made based on that same comment, given they're actually very good in melee. So now let's look at the first game. And as said, the UKT, so UK Tournament Circuit, I believe it stands for, has actually made new mission packs. So this is the first game I played, and it's basically whatever this is called, Search and Destroy with Hidden Supplies. And Hidden Supplies, as I discovered in the game, now only scores 5 points if you control objectives in no man's land. So in this one, if you hold your home, you don't actually score any primary for it. And I discovered that when the game started. Now, I will get into my opponent in a second, but I think a crucial thing here is, as you look at, again, to be all tactical, your natural expansion objective, this is actually quite hard to hold, because obviously your opponent could deploy here and shoot you off this objective. So this was a nice little puzzle to actually go through and try and solve, because you can hold it here with some dudes, but you're up against the wall, you're chargeable, and then potentially they can move quite aggressively, get guys out there and basically shoot you off that objective. So that's a bit of a puzzle there. Now obviously these two here are very hard to hold without taking casualties, and as you can see here, they've now got the 2 big fat L's. So these are 2 obscuring pieces, which are about, I think, 7 inches tall. But actually now it is very easy for aggressive armies to basically get here and push quite hard if they got advance and charge or whatever, something quite aggressive. And then interestingly, both these sides of your deployment zone, of you and your opponent, is very open, so it allows for some pretty nasty rapid ingress if you want to blast your opponent off the board. Now, who was my opponent? So interestingly, I actually got the mirror match. It was very fun to face the mirror match, and a lovely guy called Lawrence actually is a subscriber to the channel, so hi Lawrence. And you can see here his list. So he's taking Combined Arms with Cadian Command Squad, a Commissar, so obviously he's got some spare points as well, 2 Regal Dawn battle tanks, and Ursula Creed. So pretty solid choices, nothing really crazy there at the moment. It's then Cadian Shock Troops, Jungle Fighters, a 20-man blob, and then 2 10-man Def Corps blobs. Yeah, it's then 2 Taurochs, an artillery team with heavy mortar for the D6+3, strength 8, 1, AP 2 damage, 2 Kazkin, and 2 Limb and Rust battle tanks, rattling snipers and a scout sentinel. So pretty much identical to my list with a couple of key changes. And basically nothing in his list was unoptimal, with maybe only the artillery team being not a super meta choice. But as you can see here, everything in this list is good. Yeah, everything is a solid choice. So again, a very solid list choice by Lawrence here. So my deployment was, and I'll try to make this a bit clearer, but now knowing obviously my opponent wasn't a super aggressive melee army, obviously it's guard, that kind of dictated what I was thinking about. But actually, and this is where it comes into some of the choices I made, is that the Cadians here, the reason why I took Cadians as a 10-man and Lord Solar with a Death Corps blob is, given now the way to hold your home objective in this mission, for example, is you have to put 10 dudes back here who can stick you the objective and screen out the backfield, would mean potentially your command blob, if you want to keep them safe, is actually quite far back, which means the order range is restricted. So with that in mind, I'm like, right, put 10 Cadians on there, they stick you the objective, have Lord Solar placed a bit more aggressively so the order range can be a bit further out, and given their Death Corps, if they do take casualties, you've got a chance potentially of healing them back with the med pack. So that's a crucial actual decision I made in list building, is to have sticky Cadians to sticky the backfield, hold it, and then once all of your opponents uppy, downy, or deep strike, or rapid ingress, or whatever reinforcements have come in, the Cadians can move forward and actually play the game. And again, I don't want to have Lord Solar's blobs sat there with their order range being pushed back by at least about 10 inches. So you can then see the Limb and Rust battle tank on the flank here, the autocannon back here. And the reason I put the autocannon here is because if I want to put its AP down here, or AP up here, I want to have it in a position where it can do both here and obviously firing lines up there, yeah. Limb and Rust battle tank over here. Now this one obviously is a bit more aggressive, given if your opponent does rapid ingress here, this tank is sat by itself, but again, you can pop smoke, you can get -1 to hit, and also get the benefits of cover by smoke. Then to basically push for my expansion objective, and actually what I've forgotten here is Gaunt's Ghost. Let's put Gaunt's Ghost down, and that actually is a crucial one to speak about, because Gaunt's Ghost got in the mixer quite early. So they were here. So Gaunt's Ghost were there. And then I had a Taurox with Jungle Fighters, Kazkin back here, and a Scout Sentinel, with the Taurox basically scouting up here and the Taurox coming out. And then the idea is to feed out the Kazkin early here, and given they can die and you can reinforce them, you're okay with that. And then basically send out the Jungle Fighters as well. So Jungle Fighters first, actually, then the Kazkin after, to try and hold this objective. It's in the Bulgrim's place in the center, with some Jungle Fighters here, a Taurox full of Kazkin over here actually, and the Rough Riders here. Now, so I actually went second, and Lawrence's scout moves actually were quite aggressive, and this sort of dictated the way the game started off. So actually Scout moved a Scout Sentinel here, and the Taurox with Kazkin here. His Scout moved a Taurox with Kazkin down here as well. And then he also Scout moved his massive blob of Jungle Fighters up here as well, yeah? Now, the reason why I speak about Gaunt's Ghost here is Lawrence went first and pushed really hard, so went super aggressive. He basically gave the Taurox move, advanced it, disembarked the Kazkin, and within 12, actually within 3 of Ghost, because I think it had Ghost even here. And then he also basically pushed up a 20-man blob of Jungle Fighters here, and he zoomed up the Taurox, which basically dumped all the boys out here. And I was like, holy crap, I'm going to take a lot of casualties. So he put loads of Dakar into Gaunt's, because obviously a 10 Kazkin with the Melter Mine go into them, killed everybody but Gaunt himself. So this for me, I was like, okay, that's lucky, but that was a massive misplay, because I failed to account for he placed a scout moving Taurox here. It could advance, it could disembark, it could do all that stuff. That was a miscalculation by me. And the way I kind of think about Gaunt's Ghost now is actually, I after that, I was a lot more cagey with them, and sometimes even in other games I play, I often actually deploy them in a deployment zone, because I don't actually think they should be used to be thrown away, unless, of course, if you're playing World Eaters, you have to deploy them aggressively for the early screen, for example. But in other games, their utility comes in the later games. So actually, this was a massive tactical blunder by me by doing that. And I told, and we were both chatting about it. So that was a good learning for me. Now, the other Taurox basically zoomed its way up here, dumped some dudes out here, and he tried to kill the Leman Russ. Now, this is obviously a gamble. He couldn't get the melter mine, wasn't close enough, but given their wounding on 5s, even with the melters, is that they obviously can spike, and if they don't spike, they're just dead. So basically, he zoomed all these dudes up. They did a couple of wounds to a Leman Russ battle tank. They almost killed Gaunt's ghosts, and didn't do loads of damage. So then he had basically, you know, a Taurox and Kaskin here, Taurox and Kaskin here, and a blob of jungle fighters here. So then from there, basically, the way the game sort of played out is I actually drew Cull the Horde turn 1, which was like, oh, God, that's lucky. So my response there was basically to march out the Bulgrams. And interestingly, which was a good choice by Lawrence, is given he had 4 flamers here, and he gave them rapid fire, he then had, you know, 14 dudes with rapid fire las guns. So if the Rough Riders did come out, they would get bladed by 4 flamers and a gazillion rapid fire las guns with lethal hits. So that actually kept my Rough Riders back. I was like, I don't want to lose those guys to a load of Overwatch. So I actually basically pushed out the Bulgrim here. I had the Taurox here, and it dumped out some Kaz. So the Kaz got dumped out there. Had the jungle fighters basically move up there with move. And then over here, the Leman Russ battle tank basically dealt with the Kaz. And from there, basically, I managed to do a load of casualties. So I managed to clear off all these dudes here. So the Kaz, the Taurox, they got bladdered off. I basically killed most of the Kaskin here except for one dude. Picked up Gaunt's, I moved Gaunt's ghost. He ran away basically into cover because he was scared. Blew up that Taurox there. And then from there, basically, I was surprised myself. I managed to clear off basically 20 dudes. So flame with them, hit with them with loads of las guns, put some Bulgrams into them and actually killed them off. And then from there, basically, he had a Rogel Dawn tank commander come in over here, had a Leman Russ battle tank. And interestingly, and this is when I was pleasantly surprised what you can do with combined arms is, you know, I shot out the Kaskin here. Leman Russ battle tank came out there. Had a nice little fire on that line there. Exterminator came up here. And basically, because I shot the Exterminator first, I then used the Kaskins with Fields of Fire, means the Leman Russ battle tank, which had melter range, was actually getting melter AP6, and Leman Russ battle tank cannons with AP3, yeah, because AP1 plus AP1 plus AP1 is AP3, and obviously, as I said, melters on AP6. So I managed to pop the Leman Russ, the Rogel Dawn tank commander, which was pretty big. Because actually thinking about his list, I was super worried about the Rogel Dawn tank commanders, because theoretically, he could outshoot me off the game, yeah, because they've got more firepower. So 2 Rogel Dawn tank commanders, 2 Leman Russ battle tanks have got more firepower than 3 Leman Russ battle tanks and an exterminated autocannon Leman Russ. So I actually was right about that. So that's when I was like really happy with combined arms. Obviously, Lawrence was playing combined arms as well, but given Leman Russ battle tank is getting real ones to hitting on 3s, it means you are getting a fair few lethals. And I think I had like 2 lethal AP6 multi-melters. So over the course of the game, I managed to remove a lot of Paul Lawrence's models. So by the end of it, I think the Rough Riders ended up coming up here, taking a Leman Russ battle tank down to like 2 wounds. And by the end of the game, I think Paul Lawrence didn't have many units left. He had like the artillery piece here. I think he had Ursula Creed's squad here, but he didn't have a load left, which actually meant that I managed to get the win. So you can see I won by 69 to 56. And you can see, interestingly, our primary was actually very even, with only me getting the primary win at the end here, because I knew I was going second. I had that benefit always of going, you know, if you go second, you know you can push for the big score at the end of the game, which means you have to play a bit more cagey to preserve resources. But then you can see Paul Lawrence, his secondary score became quite weak because as you naturally run out of units, it's just harder to achieve his secondaries, yeah. Definitely want to comment is the challenger card. So you can see in turn 3, I was the trailing player, so I was losing by more than 6, which meant I could go for a challenger card. Now, frankly speaking, challenger cards are a bit of a joke. So let's just read out what Burst of Speed was, because there's so many of them. So Burst of Speed, it's either a free stratagem where you can make a normal move up to D6 in addition to moving, or for 3 victory points at the end of your turn, if models in 2 or more units from your army made 1 or more attacks against the same enemy unit this turn, and models in that enemy unit lost 1 or more wounds as a result of those attacks, you score 3 victory points. So you just have to have 2 of your units shoot one target, and if that target takes wound from both, you score 3 victory points. So it feels very, very achievable, and there's several examples of that as we'll go through it, but I think at the fundamentals, I think Challenger cards hopefully will get removed because they just feel way too good, way too easy. That being said, I think where I sort of got the game over Lawrence, and Lawrence was coming back in the 40k, he played a lot of 2nd edition, he was saying, Lawrence, so he's getting back into 40k of 10th edition, was he did push very hard to start, and you can actually see that if his plan did go off where he was super aggressive turn 1 and maybe killed Gaunt's Ghost, killed a Lemon Roast battle tank, had loads of dudes sat there, and maybe I couldn't clear through these guides, for example, is actually his aggressive plan would have worked. And I think, as you can see here, his early primary of 10 versus my 0, with both of us then scoring 5s and 5s and me only getting 50 to the end, actually was working, yeah? So I said to him that, turn 1, I was actually sweating bullets because I was like, man, if this plan works, I'm in trouble. But lucky for me it didn't, and unluckily for Lawrence, it didn't work for him. Right, so a strong win for me, very lucky. Now, on to the second game. This is Linchpin. So Linchpin rewards you for holding your primary, holding your own objective, and if you hold your own and hold the ones in the middle, you score 5, versus if you don't, you only score 3. Now this one here, you can see again, a very interesting layout. So holding your home objective is obviously achievable. It's very easy to do with having some dudes in cover here. But then, as I was saying to my opponent, a guy called David, is the real puzzle. The puzzle is, how do you hold the ones in the center? Yeah, so how do you do that? Because you can, if your opponent tries to hold models here, unless they've got a really small lone op unit, you can basically bust a tank out here and get quite sharp firing lines. So like Gaunt's Ghost, for example, could hold it there, but then they're basically waiting to be charged very early, yeah? Because if I put Gaunt's Ghost there, for example, they could be charged turn 1 because they have to be up against the wall to have enough models to be having enough amount of OC, and you can be definitely charged. So this, I was saying to David as we started, he was a lovely guy, is that this is the puzzle. It's how do you actually effectively hold these two? So what did David play? So David was playing Tyranids with Subterranean Assault, and I was like, what the hell does that do? So this was great to learn, and definitely, as I was thinking about asking the right, okay, so David was a good guy, which he played everything very nicely, but it's like, okay, what's your army rule? He basically spoke about the synapsis thing and then the ability to call the warp, Perils of the Warp, basically once a game, and that's where everything has to do a battle shock and then -1 leadership or -2 if they're near certain units. So that was like, okay, so that's pretty nasty because you can turn off your opponent's entire primary plan. And Subterranean Assault is that all units get real ones to hit, and then they can do loads of jank with leaving little markers, which have to be 9 inches away from you, I believe, but then when they come out, they can be within 6 of your units, and then they can charge. So I was like, holy crap. So you can pop 6-inch charges, and you can effectively, unless you're screening out the 9, effectively basically deep strike within 6 inches. So I was like, holy crap, that's actually really powerful. So then, and the type of questions I was kind of asking him is like, what's your shooting like? And then as I discovered, and I'm going to get it wrong, but basically he has 2 rail guns, which I think are these things. I can't remember exactly, but I believe these are basically rail guns. He has like 1 big monster, and I think this big monster was like anti-infantry monster, and another ginormous monster, this one here, which was mostly melee. And then he had a little bit of chaff, the gargoyles and the hormagaunts, and then all this stuff here. I can't remember exactly what it was, but like lictors are super nasty. They're lone op, and they're infiltrate. Gene Stealers obviously chop you to pieces, and then the Raveners are super spiky dudes. And then again, David was super cool. He's telling me all the strategies. He can do stuff like you can pick stuff up, drop stuff down. You can do lots of burrow stuff. You can do all types of things. So I was like, right, this army basically works on loads of movement jank. So like demons, you need to screen your backfield, which was a big mistake I made. Screen your backfield, you need to be pushing out your screens aggressively. And if anything touches you broadly in combat, you will get chopped to pieces. So with that in mind, I was like, what on earth do I do here? So this is where I actually had practiced this, I really thought about this during the week before. I was looking at this a lot, when I was procrastinating in between work meetings, was how do I sort of basically manage this? So with the puzzle of how do you hold these, it's actually really hard, obviously. So with that in mind, it's how do you deny your opponent their primary? So if you can't hold your own primary, how do you turn off your opponent's primary? So with that in mind, it's basically a Taurox. Over here, it was some jungle fighters inside the Taurox, buddied up with some Kazkin. Limon Rust battle tank tucked nicely in cover, with a scout sentinel for the scout move to get in here and be safe from shooting. It's then over here, a Limon Rust battle tank with a Taurox placed here, Kadachin jungle fighters for the scout move to get them to basically form a screen of bodies, an inch off the wall to prevent any nasty charges if he does want to go for an early charge. Bolgrum's there, Lord Solar Blob, Auto Cannon Limon Rust again, because you want to have the option of applying AP down this area and AP down that area. Rough Riders all sat in the back because they've got a massive move. And then the Acadians here were basically strung out that way because I want to sticky this objective turn 1, and then have the option to go this way, because this is the one I can kind of hold versus this is the one Dave can kind of hold. And I want to have the option of, because in here I had Kazkin, so I could send the Kazkin out to die early. I could then send out some Acadians to get in the vehicle, for example, and basically play the game that way. So I think I went second, in this one. Let me just check actually, because I want to make sure I'm getting that right, but let me just check actually. I can check this way. So you're going to see who went for, I went first. I went second rather, so basically from there, actually Dave is a pretty good player, so he was super cagey turn 1. He literally moved, he just staged a bit of stuff and didn't want to get too aggressive. Now turn 1, I basically got, I believe I got like, I think it was no prisoners. And because he had his nasty lictor in there, and I think in here as well, it basically meant I was like, right, I need to get a kill and I want to start piling stuff on this objective. So what I did is I basically charged out a Taurox here. I dumped out the Kaz there. So they're on the objective and they're looking at the poor lictor. I then hustled up the Kadachins and put them in that transport with the thinking that, okay, if the transport gets blown up, at least they'll pile it, maybe hold the objective. And Gaunt's Ghost again, before I forget poor Gaunt, they were placed all the way back here. Because he had loads of super nasty choppy guys in here. I didn't want to have them basically get to Gaunt. So they were there. The Bolgrums pushed up, and I had also the Rough Riders hustle up like this. So they applied a bit of damage. They killed the lictor, and also because a lictor was on this objective as well, I sent out some jungle fighters to die, which is simply what they do, because, again, I don't want him to be scoring an early primary lead because he had a single lictor on the objective. So I sent out some poor jungle fighters to die for the Emperor, and they certainly died for the Emperor quite quickly after, with the Sentinel going up here. Now, the way the game sort of played out was a key moment, well, one key moment that David did was, given I wasn't effectively screening out this here, he basically, he could rapid ingress for free, I think it was, like an enhancement, this great big hero monster who basically touches objective. So that was a crucial play by Dave, where given, again, I couldn't screen them out, he could basically land a big fat monster here that couldn't be shot by anything serious on the objective, and that meant when it came to his turn, he scored more than the primary. Now, another crucial mistake I made, because I send the Bolgrums up here, and as per the photo, which is I have on the video here, you can actually see that it deep struck there. He then moved it here and basically sat it there, because I had some, before this happened, some Cadian strung out there, which he charged and tore to pieces. But then the Rough Riders got in the mixer, and it was beautiful, where the Rough Riders are hitting on 2s, wounding on 4s, and given this thing didn't have an invul save, they basically blew up this massive snake, So they really proved their worth. They charged into this massive snake. straight through the save and basically killed it, which was very, very glorious. But a crucial error I made, and this was a mistake I legitimately made, is that I had set the Cadians up there to die. I had the Rough Riders there, a Limon Russ battle tank there, and the autocannon Limon Russ actually was all the way over here, which actually meant I left a great big fat hole in my deployment zone right here. Now, Dave actually said to me, he's like, do you want to move stuff around? I was like, no, mate, that's a legitimate mistake, because I actually had pushed up Lord Solar's blob to be quite aggressively pushed to push out to the centre here. And then David actually pulled Cull the Horde. So given Lord Solar's blob now activates Cull the Horde, he plonked in a load of, I think it's the brain bugs who've got like either las cannons or blast weapons, and basically blew up Lord Solar's blob. Now this got super, super tight. He then charged, so I think some Raveners on here, and basically they left Lord Solar on 2 wounds. Now, this meant I actually could have lost my home objective, yeah, because all the dudes who were holding the objective had died. But given the Cadians had stickied my objective and gone off and been eaten by a ginormous bug, and given Lord Solar survived, he actually survived on 2 wounds, actually passed the invul save, and because this was a sticky objective, meant I still hold my home. It was so close. Like, that was actually pretty key, because if I hadn't done that, I would have lost the game, as you would have seen. And then, of course, I sent a Luminous battle tank in there to help out and sort of do stuff, but that was a pretty key moment. That again taught me to, if you're playing someone like Subtraining, you have to fully screen your backfield, obviously. And I had the resources to do so, yeah, because Lord Solar's blob definitely could have been strung out to fully screen the backfield. So that was a tactical blunder by me. Now, by the end of the game, I think I'd managed to do a fair bit of damage to David. I was quite surprised, actually, because I'd killed a big serpent here. I killed an aggressive bug here. I killed a railgun bug over here. I think he had 1 railgun bug left at the end, but then he called in turn 5, Shadows of the Warp, whatever it's called. And interesting, as you'll see, it actually killed a lot of my secondaries because loads of stuff failed battle shock. So as we look at the actual score, you can see I did win, so lucky me. And interestingly, we both scored an even primary, so 17 and 17. So a really tight primary game, with only at the end me scoring more. And you can see here, this is where David basically had the power play of rapid ingressing the big bug in my turn to hold more, to hold this objective in his preceding turn. Now, you can then see our secondaries are very close. And interestingly, when I was speaking about the fact that yeah, it was this here, because I had loads of units all over the board, but because loads of them failed battle shock, means only one of them, which I think was like Gaunt's Ghost or something else, or several did pass battle shock, actually contributed to engage all fronts. Now, crucially, Gaunt's Ghosts, they passed battle shock, dropped in Dave's deployment zone and basically did sabotage, so that's obviously super helpful to do that. But then also the other one, which was, again, you can see I scored 3 points on a challenger card called Great Haste, which is, let's check this one, let's see how easy this one is. Another pathetically easy one. So Great Haste is 1 or more units from your army within your opponent's deployment zone. So lucky our Gaunt's Ghost, I came up, dropped down into his deployment zone and got 3 points. So the thing with that is that if you've also got behind enemy lines and you pull this challenger card, you just double up. So again, really easy to get that one. So effectively behind enemy lines, I got again for 3 points. And you can see that if I didn't have that, it would have been a very, very close one, yeah. So yeah, I mean, games like this, me and Dave both said it was a really enjoyable game. It was very backwards and forwards. We had loads of casualties. Like, I think we both, Dave did say he made a couple of tactical blunders here and there. So did I, obviously, with what I spoke about, the fact I left my backfield open. But then I managed to get it. So happy with that, where basically the challenger card, again, giving me the win. So lucky Jeff. All right, on to the last game, game 3. So identical deployment as the first game, but take and hold, which is hold 1, hold 2, or hold more. So classic 40k. Now, my opponent was a guy called Joseph, or Joe. I've actually played Joe before, and he's playing Black Templars. I'm in a bit of a grudge, in inverted commas, because in the previous game I actually managed to beat him quite decisively because he failed a key stratagem which goes off on a 3-up twice. But that wasn't the case this one, so he's okay. Right, so I know Black Templars quite well because my battle brother Adam King, Bolgrim King in the Patreon roll call plays them. And basically, these guys are just super choppy. That's what I just basically get, is they're hyper choppy, they touch you, disappear. Broadly speaking, his list architecture was just loads of super choppy blobs of dudes in transports. And then he had one set of jump pack dudes, and he had 1, 2, 3 impulses. He had no battle line, which is okay, doesn't need it. It's then 3-man sword brethren times 2 times 3, a mega blob and 2 blobs of 3. It's then an infiltrator squad, hell blasters, assault intercessors, and 2 lancers, which are effectively rail guns. Now, as I discovered, this blob here, somehow they had advance and charge. They got loads of like little extra dudes and just like crazy, like just terrifying. So as you can see, it's basically concentrations of heavy melee where they touch you that you just get deleted. And a key thing I did actually forget, which will be a bit of a blunder I'll speak about, is he had a reactive move when you shot them. They can D6 move. And then beyond that, a couple other key ones. Well, the key one being actually infantry. They can trap you in melee on a 3-up. So they can do it against non-monsters in vehicles. So it pulls a stratagem for 1 CP. If you survive combat against them, you can't fall back on a 3-up. And that actually went off this game. Because in the previous game, I joked with Joe, is it didn't go off and it gave me the game. And we'll examine how that wasn't the case for me this time. Right, so let's look at my deployment. So pretty similar to what I actually laid out against Lawrence in the first game. Now you can see obviously it's more important the Bolgrams here and the Catachan Jungle Fighters, because I think Joe went first. Yeah, Joe went first and had loads of like a massive blob, the 9-10-man blob of dudes up against the wall here. He had a lot of transports pushed up this way, the Lancer over there. Over here he only had the jump pack intercessors over here and a single Lancer there. So again, turn 1 for Joe was quite quiet. He just basically pushed stuff out. Now I got Storm Hostile Objective turn 1, which meant I then hurtled the Taurox all the way up here, dumped out some Kazkin, and made the assumption that they would kill 6 models. Yeah, I was like, right, they're going to definitely kill 6 models. I'm like, cool, Melter Mine, Grenade Keyword, Grenade Stratagem. I managed to get enough. I gave them Rapid Fire, which meant they get 7 plasma shots, 2 melters and some other nonsense. And I was like, right, that's definitely going to do the job. How foolish of me. So then basically the Melter Mine didn't go off. I did 2 mortal wounds on the grenade, and then because he pulled Armor of Contempt, and because I was hitting on 3s and rolled loads of 2s, I didn't kill that unit, and then totally forgot Joe could use a stratagem to D6 move the unit onto the objective and out OC my OC3 on the objective. So I was like, okay, great. I don't score Storm Hostile turn 1. That's a waste of points, and then I'm going to basically lose a load of dudes for no particular reason. Now, that sort of set the scene in this court. So actually does set the scene because that became very positive for me down there. So the Rough Riders here, I decided to keep Secure No Man's Land, or I think it was Storm Hostile rather, not Secure, Storm Hostile Objective, because I actually have the resources to take it. But this is where Joe pushed quite hard here. He basically pushed up, I think, a Lancer, which tried to shoot a Limmerus battle tank, but having played Lancers enough, I know they typically whiff because you pop smoke, they miss once, they wound once, you've still got like a 5-up save. They only do, well, they do a bit of damage, but they don't always kill tanks. Is I managed to pop a Lancer, I think an Impulsor, and then also the dudes that came out got blattered by the Kaz, because the Kaz got, I think it was the Jungle Fighters got out there, they stood in the way, and then sent the Kazkin out there to stand in the way. And then I did a fair bit of damage. I basically popped most of his vehicles on this part of his board quite quickly. He also put 1 vehicle in here because it had to, I think, score like, I don't know, Aerodynol or something like that. Pushed out a Lemon Rust battle tank, which was, I think, here actually, to shoot that. And what I was aware of was, given he had a massive blob of chargy guys here, I basically sent out trash to keep him busy. Yeah, so I was like, right, have a Scout Sentinel. And I was like, okay, cool. Now have some Bolgrams. Now this is where there was a tactical blunder by me, is I had the 3 Bolgrams laid out. He then charged his super blob of 10 dudes, who chopped them to pieces, unsurprisingly. But given they were all the way over here, they could actually consolidate into the Jungle Fighters here. Now, having thought about this, and I knew this was coming, is I should have been way more diligent with basically sending out the Bulgrams all by themselves and pushing back everything else to be not within consolidation range. So I had to basically understand how far they could advance and charge, because they can advance and charge, into the Bulgrams, understand how far they could consolidate, and then not allow anything to be touched. Because again, the jungle fighters were basically pushed along here, which meant because the Bulgrams were actually placed like that way, he could touch a single dude here, which meant in my turn, I tried to fall back and Joe rolled a 6, so the Mets are going absolutely nowhere, which basically trapped me in combat and meant I had a massive blob of choppy guys here I could not interact with. Now, on the positive, the Kazkin died, the Taurox went over there, I think it got popped by a Lancer over here, but the Rough Riders, charged over here, I gave a move, they went all the way over there, they had an unfathomable charge. I picked up Gaunt's Ghost. Again, I forgot to put them down here, but I picked up Gaunt's Ghost. Again, the master tactician play here, I'm very proud of this, is you basically, you pick them up, you give Rough Riders move, Gaunt's Ghost come down and then give them +1 weapon skills. So, tactical play, go Jeff, where they basically came in, deleted these guys, and me and Joe were joking how ridiculous this is, but hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s with the AP4, he's got no save, he's got his D6 damage each. He then got 20 horse kicks going into them, so they just got deleted off the board, and I took that objective back. Yeah, so this was looking quite positive over here, but then I think that happened before this mess started, because then the Bulgrams were dead. I then had a load of guys basically capturing my Kadish and jungle fighters. And over here, he had enough. He started to push all his brethren, the sword brethren, this way. So the jungle fighters were dead. The Kazkin were dead. Now, this tank went up there. It eventually died. And here, I think, this tank was also dead, actually, because the tank was there. The Bulgrams were there. So they got both deleted. So I was like, okay, good. I'm taking loads of casualties. They were dead. So I decided to then put the Cadians in here. This tank was over there or something like that. And I put Lord Solar over this way. Yeah, actually this was over, anyway, that was like that. So then I was like, so this tank went over there, then went back over here, and then I sent the Cadians out with the Commissar in a hope of screening it here. Now again, this is where I had a tactical blunder, is knowing that they actually were along here, I failed to account for they could advance and charge after they cut the Catechins to pieces, because I had, say, the Cadians along here, but left a little narrow hole here to let Joe trickle in some dudes here and actually get onto this, into Lord Solar's blob, delete this tank, delete, I think they lived, but they got deleted. This was dead, the jungle fighters were dead, and all I actually was left with was, I think the Taurox actually lived over here, and by the end of the game, I basically had, the Liminus battle tank 1 was actually over here, they're coming from reinforcements. The Rough Riders then killed the Lancer, moved all the way up here, killed some dudes on this objective, and then at the end of the game, where I had literally nothing left, we'll look at the scores in a second, is the Rough Riders, I then strung them out like that, to hold that objective and that objective. Gaunt's Ghost came down in this area, with a Liminus battle tank there, to basically give me the score at the end, which is hold 1, hold 2, hold 3, Gaunt's Ghost for engage all fronts, and then this was to do establish locus. So let's look at the scores. So I lost this by a point, which is a total bummer. So you can see Joe went first, and he had 2 very nice challenger cards. Let's have a look at renewed focus and pivotal moments. Let's see how easy these are. So, right, renewed focus is 1 unit from your army that is more than 15 inches away from all other units in your army. You score 3 victory points. So what this meant, which Joe had some I think some infiltrator guys. He just basically shuffled them back, still touching the objective, and everything more than 15 inches away. So job done, 3 victory points. The other one, pivotal moment, is you score 3 victory points if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed this turn. So basically no prisoners, but better. And given where Joe was in the game, which is chopping dudes to pieces, this was ridiculous easy. And you can see, interestingly, he actually scored none of his secondaries, attempting target, sabotage, or display of might. But then he got sabotage, obviously, in the last turn. Of course, it was in my deployment zone, I had nothing left. And bring it down was killing a Taurox. But again, you can see, actually, if I'd stormed hostile, I would have won. And here, if I hadn't have mismanaged my screening along here with Acadians to protect my home objective from the super nasty brethren from getting in there, I would have scored 10, which would have given me the game, yeah? So a great game, some clear blunders I made. I'd say also Joe, he didn't really lock down this part of the board, and I was quite surprised by that. But actually, we'll get onto this, the rankings. Joe actually came second, so obviously plan works, but he didn't have much here to lock this down, and that actually allowed me to hold this, which interestingly has me thinking with this actual layout is maybe your actual expansion is over here. Not convinced by that, because his plan basically was to push really hard this way, yeah? So push there and push there with minimal push here to sort of and then I actually was able, as I said, to get the Rough Riders to charge all the way up there, blat some dudes off that objective and actually hold both objectives because they strung it like that. But you can see, you know, I lost this one, mostly the challenger cards, but also, as I said, if I'd stormed hostile correctly, have taken into account the fact that I actually may not have killed the guys in combat from the Kazkin getting out and doing the melter mine and doing all their shots. I should have just sent them out, drop on the objective, die for the Emperor, score storm hostile. And likewise, as I said, I should have better screened this big blob of dudes because I had the resources. I definitely could have sent the Cadians out here because they're in a Taurox to screen this objective and make sure Lord Solar and the massive blob of dudes who were OC3 each definitely holds the objective. So some blunders by me. But here again, 6 on the challenger cards is really good for Joe. But of course, you know, it's 6 points scored against me for challenges. And in the other games, it was 6 points scored by me for challenger cards. So again, I can't complain. I'm like, it's even, yeah, because both I had them scored against me and I scored them against my opponent. So with that in mind, I went 2-1. Where does that place me of the 20-something players? You can see Joe, there's Joe there. Actually came second, so really good for Joe. And Black Templars, as we know, aren't a faction that's killing it, so very strong showing by Joseph to do so well, Black Templar. So where's Jeff? Jeff is 7th, which is good. Happy with that. You can see, interestingly, I think there were several players who went 2-1, so, but you can see, because my scores weren't as high, obviously I didn't place as high, but I think there were, 20 players, not 21, 20 players. So coming 7th, really happy with that, 2-1. Obviously the mirror into Lawrence is the mirror, but for me personally, it's 2 wins and 1 loss, with that loss being very close. So happy with that. As I said, it's very good to be back on the horse in inverted commas. So let's look at some quick reflections of all this, because I've been talking for a little bit, I think. 40 minutes, right. So as I said, so after a bit of a rough patch, it's nice to be back on the horse in inverted commas. So yeah, if you've seen my other videos, I play at St. Albans Darkfire Cafe probably once every 2 months because it's about 45 minutes from my place and it's a nice relaxed scene. And I think I went undefeated there twice, and then I got a wooden spoon in one other. So I went from very good to very bad. Played at a teams tournament where I basically drew 2, lost 3 games, and I felt terrible after that. So it was nice to take a bit of a break, and the weather's been amazing in the UK recently, so it's good to just be outside for a bit, but then get back into 40, actually sort of think about it properly. Now, the new UKTC terrain pack is a nice change. So again, if you're based in Britain, you will know it's become quite stale, so it's nice, a bit of change. And hopefully for those of you in different parts of the world, it's cool to see what is played in the UK. Now, as I said, challenger cards feel ridiculously too easy. I think a 6-point differential to get them should be at least 10. And hopefully they adjust this because it does feel very, very easy. And all of them, as I discussed, you saw 4 of them, are ridiculous. They're just so easy to achieve. Now, that being said, as I discussed, both you and your opponent can qualify for them, so it's not like it's unfair either way. I had 6 points scored against me, and I scored 6 points against my opponent. So for me, it's a net-net, but I think still the game probably doesn't actually need them. Now, unit-wise, Rough Riders are amazing. I did a video on these. You can check out in the description, in the linky here, and this is thanks to Garsman Medicaid Rolf, based in the US, a patron. He spoke about how good they are to use and gave me an understanding how to use them. They are so good. They hit so hard. They move 12. You can make them move 15. They can hit on 2s. They can wind on 2s into infantry. And if your opponent doesn't have an invul save, obviously they will just blat things. Yeah, so that means into knights, into baby knights, you're wounding on 3s, and even to big knights, you're wounding on 4s. But for example, because knights don't have them, because a lot of vehicles don't have invul saves, because big bugs don't have invul saves like the one I killed, they just delete things. And then you've got 20 horse kick attacks. And even if you go into chaff, use the frag lancers, you can get a comical amount of hits. So I'm completely sold on Rough Riders. They're an amazing unit. They will take a lot of finesse. You can't let them be exposed. You've got to deliver them correctly. But I would say definitely for us folks in the UK, in a terrain-dense environment, this actually is the right environment for them, because if it's more open, maybe in the US, I don't know what it's like in the US, it's a bit tougher, but for melee armies, it's definitely, if it's terrain-dense, this is where they excel. Now, I tried Bolgrams. Even at 100 points, I'm not sure about them. Maybe in blocks of 6, they're better, but it's 200 points, it's a big sink. And the way to think about it, again, obviously, they don't benefit from your army rule whatsoever. They can't get orders, obviously. They're very resilient. I think blocks of 3 just is not worth it. So I personally will swap them plus the Commissar for a Hellhound, because a Hellhound can move. It's tanky, not as tanky as 3 Bolgrams, and its shooting output is maybe as effective as 3 Bolgrams batting, slapping some infantry with their batons. Now, Lord Solar, for me, still feels fantastic. Again, Ursula, I think within the context of with Ursula Creed going up, that's what makes him more attractive. But I think even if Ursula was only 65 points still, Lord Solar is really good because he gives you a redeploy, which you should always use. You can order everything, obviously. And then the +1 CP in your command phase means you can aggressively cycle crap secondaries. So if you do pull crap secondaries, and you've got Ursula, for example, I know she can make stratagems -1 cost, but if you don't have the option to do that, for example, means you can't get the economies out of Ursula, but Lord Solar, you're always getting the option to cycle crap secondaries, because you want to always be, getting rid of crap secondaries, because, definitely I think with the game being a lot closer with challenger cards, if you're leading, you want to be leading really far, yeah, because, this meant that this meant in these 2 turns I was leading, yeah, I was leading these 2 turns, obviously, but not by enough, yeah, and maybe I could have cycled some secondaries. Yeah, I think I had marked for death. Yeah, actually, I pulled tempting target, cycled that to get marked for death, which was just terrible. So, again, I was trying to do the right thing. It doesn't always happen, but I think Lord Solar is really good. Now, again, you could say I'm sure some of the mentalists don't use it, but for us average idiots like me, I think he's a very good choice. And then Gaunt's Ghost, for me, will always be a solid pick. I was chatting with Lawrence. I think he said he tried them and didn't really make them work, but they take a lot of finesse again. I don't see them being used aggressively whatsoever. They are your scoring piece, they are your extra order piece, and they're your late game uppy downy. So definitely, I think if you're trying to make them work, and you can check a video here where I talk about using them, is you probably want to use them more cagely. You want to maximize their value, because again, I think in both, in this game, they gave me extra engage or fronts points. In this game, they gave me the big fat sabotage. And then to Lawrence's frustration, Gaunt by himself, because all his mates got killed, was scoring recover assets. I think he was scoring me behind enemy lines, that type of thing. So you definitely want to be keeping them for that type of play. So as said, good to be back on the horse. It's nice to be getting some good win rates, albeit a mirror match, and then have one very narrow loss against Joe. So this is an RT. We're not playing like some super GT with like hundreds of plays. So obviously the standard is not going to be as high as in those bigger tournaments, but still it's nice to be doing well. So hopefully interesting for you out there as you follow my journey in being a competitive 40k player. Hopefully you found this insightful, and hopefully you can pick up some tips or tricks or hints on how to navigate Astra Militarum in 40k 10th edition. So let me know what you think, any questions or comments. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, if you want to support me, you can do so with a like, comment, or by subscribing, watching my other YouTube videos, or becoming a Patreon Platoon member. We get a miniature assigned in the roll call end of each video. You can also become a channel member, or if you're super keen, you can actually get some dice, which I've had custom printed by the dice brand in the US. there's some nice custom dice. I've got a description below with all the details. You basically send me an email, do a PayPal link, and I'll post them to you anywhere in the world. So super thanks to all my subscribers, be it the patrons or channel members, and also great to meet Lawrence, fellow Astra Militarum Guard Commander at this tournament. To get your bayonet sharp, las gun oiled. Fave for the Emperor strong. Patron Platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn. Tank Commander Mitchell. Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten. Lieutenant Burke Nielsen. Lieutenant Smith. Colour Sergeant DuPont. Sergeants Adal, Scott, the Colonel Merrill. Veterans Gibson, Hall, Lundeen. Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Easingwood, Hills, Lyons, Malik, Nitton, Medicae Rolfe, Tontkin. Conscripts England, Evangun, Goodwin. Honorary Members Balgrim King, Syker Smith, Cyan Gaylard, Aquilon Nassine.